welcome back to another episode of the Raven's Voice. You got Tierson here, and with me, as usual, is Zealous.
Hey everybody, what's going on?
This week, the main topic is weapons.
Weapons. Hope you.
Weapons. Pick your poison. Oh, we talked about this topic last week, and
Mhm.
we got some great responses, and we got kind of psyched for this one. A little bit more of a lighthearted one. You talk about
Mhm.
events, talk
Mhm.
about the community and patches, and it's all these heavy topics. Let's just have some fun this week. Let's just talk about weapons.
Totally down with that.
But before we talk about weapons, let's talk about things like the community, and events and patches in this first half
Co-
because we'll talk about weapons in the second half, but one thing that we said we were going to do and we didn't do it. We just had a really busy weekend, both of us. We did not do our post exhibition show, so we're going to do that right now.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you once
No, no,
more
no. Go,
because
go.
I have not plugged our usual plugs yet.
Hit it.
Join in on our conversations. You can go to armorycorelegacy.com, the most active forums in the Armory Core community. You will find dedicated threads to every single one of our episodes. You can also listen to the shows over at theravensvoice.com, where we have it both in just audio, and we'll have a link to the YouTube video there. And soon enough, we'll have an opportunity for you to download the show, take it with you wherever you want, and we're going to have an archive up for all of our previous episodes. We're still working on that. You're going to notice a lot of changes here in the next couple weeks on the website. We're still getting that to where we want it. It's not quite there yet.
Mhm.
If you want to email us, you can do that at the Ravens Voice ACL at gmail.com. All right, plugs are done.
There they are. Cool.
There you go. Oh yes, and like us on Facebook because we haven't even plugged it yet. So
Yeah, Facebook and Twitter. We got our links there too.
yep, you can find that. You can find that over on our website. Okay, so let's talk about the exhibition.
Yeah, right on. Again, we were gonna approach this Sunday. Yeah, so much happened in the way we, ran into things. But yeah, here we get a chance to talk about it. The first thing that comes to mind, at least for me, about this exhibition, a lot of familiar faces, a lot of people we've seen through the community, the forums, others we'd met. Um, I think one of the most standout things here, though, not as many new people. Or just names that perhaps you don't see around all the time, or engaging a large group to get people to come on and play. And at first, I thought you could attribute some of this to the fact that the exhibition itself, wasn't announced in the main patch notes. But not totally, because not every exhibition has been announced in the main patch notes anyway.
Right.
So,
Uh, okay, so how many hours did you play? Now, and to address this first, this
mhm.
was the first full 24-hour exhibition. It started midnight and went until midnight. Cheng got it going midnight on Saturday, and it went until midnight on Sunday. So, long event, big
It
event.
was, it was. As you were right there for it as well, Tiers. We had a really nutty recording schedule that weekend, and it's just kind of tricky to get on and kind of get things done. I got about 4 or 5 hours total in myself from when I dropped on, when I logged. I think we were taking care of a lot of things in between. At one point I know we'd even kind of swapped off. You had gone to get some things rendered, and I had stayed on.
Well,
Um,
yeah, we were doing the show later
yeah.
last week because we ended up having to do the show at different times and all
Mhm.
that. So yeah, at one point on Sunday it was like you were rendering out the show, then you sent it to me, or you sent it to the web server, and then I took it. You came on, and then
Yeah.
I left, and I went and I got the video ready for it, and yeah, no, but we're just we're grown ass men. We have busy schedules, and a lot of our stuff a lot of our stuff ends up on the weekends in that
Yeah.
particular weekend. But that being said, you still got several hours in. I got
Yeah.
about 8 or 9 hours in.
Hmm.
It was kind of cool in all previous exhibitions. I'd always stayed in our specific channel. That we would have labeled for the podcast or the Ravens Voice or whatever.
Hmm.
But when it kicked off Saturday night, I was able to just kind of go around, and I was just in Cheng's channel for a while, and so that was fun. I got to just be a guy. I didn't have to feel like I was hosting or anything. So
Right on.
very different experiences for me from when I played Saturday night, late Saturday night, technically Sunday morning into Sunday night. Um,
Hmm.
this was an opportunity for me. I took this as an opportunity to try one of my favorite builds, which we'll talk about. I'll go more in depth about in the second half of the show as far as weapons. Always been a fan of double rifles. I abandoned this in Verdict Day because the rifles just weren't up to snuff. But with the patch that came out, they had been upgraded a bit, both directly and indirectly. This did well Saturday night. Did not do so well Sunday night, but I'm not quite sure what would have considering the competition we had.
So you say comparisons between Saturday and Sunday, and you saw definitely way more of the Saturday group than I had a chance to. What were the main things you were running into? I mean, did you find a decent design variety? Were people kind of trying off the wall things, or did you kind of run into similar patterns?
You see a variation
Hmm.
just overall, but I think what was dominating is what's kind of been dominating for the most part: tanks, snipers.
Hmm.
Um, you get plenty of lightweights in there, a lot of lightweights. KE definitely a lot more popular. KE weapons overall a lot more popular since the patch. Part of the
Hmm.
reason why I
Hmm.
wanted to try this out with the double rifle, which again did well Saturday night, but not so well on Sunday. But again, I don't know what would have. So,
See,
uh, yeah, but I saw yeah, I saw some variation. Definitely a lot of
mm,
tanks though, a lot of snipes, a lot of KE. Um, you get the Kurosawa sprinkled in there, although not as much as it used to. Um, but yeah, it's variation, but not a lot of variation.
right. Kind of surprised, at least for Saturday, or at least for the kickoff, there wasn't talk of, people goofing off, just throwing some over weapons in here and there, or just doing something off the wall like that. I know that was one of the first things I did when I hopped on Sunday. I just totally just goofed around, with the Giga missile on an open map. Just, it's like a why not?
That
So,
doesn't happen too much anymore. You don't get a lot of goofing off. I mean, even in five, you didn't get a lot of it either.
no.
People are out there and they for some reason feel that they need to be serious business from start to finish.
Yeah,
Not all of them. I'm generalizing overall, but I mean, fair enough to. I think it's fair enough
yeah.
to say that not everybody's like that, but definitely the vast majority.
Hmm. Um, I think in part two, it could be as people work with builds they really enjoy and kind of start to sculpt out a niche or a staple design or a staple series they really enjoy. It's I think part of the fun becomes practicing with that or practicing with what runs really well for them and just running with that, just using that theme, regardless. So there's been a lot of talk here about Sunday. The Sunday group we had in the Sunday competition. We towards the end of that evening, especially. We had a number of just great logins, some uh, big hits with piles all day long.
The
Yeah,
piles were definitely in full force on
in
Sunday.
in full force. I
Melee
both,
overall, which
yeah.
uh,
You had
hitbox on those things is it's been pretty ridiculous for the entire game.
Yeah, you got melee, and then you got the range play was there. I think on the battle royale I saw that more, more gun centric matches. But yeah,
Mhm.
it's definitely especially Sunday, as in a lot of times for those of you who are active in free battle and everything. Yeah, don't get assassinated. Watch your back, because if you don't, you could easily get taken by a good clean swipe via a pile or a good chunk, whittled out from a laser blade or something of that nature. Fortunately, we're not talking like 1.4 ACFA or anything of that nature, but it was out there. It's out there in full force, and
Who would talk about that? Why would you talk about that?
you'd be surprised. There's some voices for it,
I would be surprised. You're right.
man. But yeah, we look at the field, we look at what was available and what were some of the weaponry being used. I know gun wise, at least I saw a lot of some of the CE machine gun getting some play. Just neat to see. Not a whole lot of heavy missiles or missile boats or anything. I didn't see any weapon arms. I was hoping I'd see some others goof around with those for
I
a
thought I
couple
saw a couple.
designs. So
I know I saw some of the. I forget the name of them. The blade arms. I definitely saw some of those out there.
Vendetta or two.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I saw some missile arms. I know you were one of them.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. There wasn't a lot of them, but no, there were some.
Tell you, if we're talking about guns, I think one of the best resurrections that we saw for this event was hashtag HRJ Dual Gats with flash rockets, bringing back some serious retro from Armored Core 5 Vanilla. That was hands down probably the funniest part of the night for me. Just
Yeah,
seeing.
that's because you weren't the one getting hammered by it.
No, no, well, no, come on, look at the context, man. It was a complete joke. Uh,
I know, no, but I was the one
right,
getting hammered with
right.
it, so that sucks. Yeah, so I mean, like I said earlier, a couple new things were tried with this exhibition. First, it was 24 hours. Secondly, it was on a Sunday instead of a Saturday. You had mentioned a bit about this, and this is something that you and I both agreed on that, in previous exhibitions, which ironically also the one at the end of AC5, there was a lot more, for lack of a better term, or maybe this is the best term to use, there was a lot more casual players
Mhm.
that joined in. That definitely was not the case this time around. The player pool was considerably smaller than even in the
Yeah,
previous ones. Um,
yeah.
you know, I guess it depends on what you're looking for out of this exhibition. If you're looking to just play with a bunch of people that you know, to show off some of the new builds that you had to people whose opinions, on your builds really matter to you, then it was a complete success. For me, I definitely, I look for a couple things. I look to see what some of the better players are using.
Mhm.
I look to see, a lot more diversity in the player base. I only saw one of that. And honestly, not the more important of the two for me. The most important thing to me is to actually see, all the different people that are playing all the different styles.
Right, right.
That was not there. It was a little bit more Saturday night. It was not there Sunday night, and I
Hmm.
don't, I don't think the 24-hour thing worked very well, and
Yeah.
I don't think having it on Sunday worked very well either. In fact, I'm sure it didn't. That part didn't work very well. I think having
Hmm.
it on a Sunday was just a really bad idea. And I know Chang did some research on that and spoke with a bunch of people about that, but I don't think he should do that again, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not seeing a sizable payoff from utilizing a method like that, I mean, I think that gives you something to note for the future. If we were to run these events again, again, previously we'd seen these, they were set, they were on their day. People knew they could come, at this specific day and get, AC matches. And as a result, I think having that condensed availability really made, I think, just the pull and the structure of things just looser, but also tighter because of the sheer participation we had. I'm not sure if for this event specifically, if pooling what we had, Sunday and Saturday, we could have guaranteed we could have got all the same players there at the same time. I'm not sure, but historically, I think the single day model has worked better. And because the longer you go on, you'll go into your people who maybe they've just done some world mode events and they just want to be there to throw down in some free play matches. You're gonna get your veterans and more of your hardcore players in at that point. So lots to work off for from the future, but hey, there's plenty of footage recorded here. If any of you are interested in taking a look at some of the matches, maybe you didn't get a chance to make exhibition, maybe you're looking for some ideas on what was there. Cheng was sure to record some footage. I will be sure to place a link, or Tierson, I can help toss you a link to the exhibition event thread over at ACL. Cheng had a link to his YouTube page with this, or I suppose we could just link the YouTube. But it's about
Yeah, and he did link some videos just in the thread.
right, right. So I mean, there's some footage here. Some are a little over 12 minutes and whatnot. From set perspective. So yeah, it's there. Check it out. It's all recorded, and just have fun with that. Dealt with.
All right. So yeah, we had a couple responses to some of the things that we talked about in last week's episode. I wanted to start off here with how I am with names. Ataraxis, is that right?
You got it. Look at you.
Sweet. I know I'm going up. I can read words and names that you would never see in real life. Okay. Um, he talked a little bit about the design contest.
Hmm.
Let's see. So I mean, he commented on something that we're going to talk about a little bit more in this, elaborate a little bit more on this when we get to our three-part series
Hmm.
about repairing armored core. But this is a big one for me. And if you're on the ACL staff, you already know this. You hear about this all the time. You've heard about this from me all the time. And that
Hmm.
is, and I asked him about this a couple times last week. Um, he makes a comment that why can't we just put together an event just for fun, and not have to have prizes for it. I don't disagree with that. uh there's nothing wrong with having events that don't have prizes for it, but there's
Right.
so much more right with having events that do have prizes for it. It's a motivational factor, right? That's just the way it is. um while the design contest was the only game in town, pretty much. And as a whole, I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. I thought it went off a lot. Like I said last week, it went off a lot better than I thought it would.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think giving incentive is never a bad thing, and in fact, not only that, but it adds on to the fun. That's I don't think it's a bad thing at all. And if you're going to take the time to put together such an event, there's nothing wrong with throwing a few bucks in there as well to give some prizes to people. I mean, if you're going to take the time to put together the event, there enormous amount of time went into getting all these pictures ready.
Oh yeah.
Enormous amount of time went in for people to make sure their builds were up to where they would want to enter them into a contest like this.
Oh yeah.
Take a few more hours and maybe just at the very least make some emblems for those people in the generation that they won,
Hmm.
and give them an emblem for it. Obviously, they're still messing around with those builds at least enough to want to enter them into a design contest. I mean, that's something cool that they can, if they don't even if they don't play too much anymore, they can slap that emblem on their AC and like, all right, I get to retire him having won a contest, and he's got the emblem to prove it.
There you go. I mean,
That's the thing for me. I've just always felt that giving people incentive makes it more fun. Competition in general is a lot of fun for me,
mhm.
and I think we would have seen, especially with the current gen, I think we would have seen a lot more entries and a lot better entries had that been there, and that in itself would make it a lot more fun, whether you care about the prize or not. The fact that
Yeah.
I think that would a lot of people do care about that. So but for me in general, I think that's something that's lacking in the community events overall is
Hmm.
incentive prizes. Um, you know, it adds on to legitimacy. And again, in this case, in the design contest, that doesn't matter because it is the only event. There
Hmm.
is no bar.
Right.
There was no standard. But I think that's something that's missing in a lot of the events that are going on overall in the AC community nowadays.
Yeah. I mean, it's, again, this is a sentiment, we've definitely met at the same point in the road a lot about. Um, Obviously, it was a more straightforward, I think, measure to implement things like this when, you had LAN, right? And you had, people right there in events, and, you knew right here, this is where the prize pool's going. This is where I put my 20 bucks in the hat, for being here and having access to the facilities and everything. Um, but the way things are now, and I think the state the AC community's in, I think it's always fun when you get something extra to help, motivate people to participate in an event. The players don't always need it; they don't. Some just want to design and or just play just for the sake of playing or just for the sake of designing. But I know I've always appreciated that touch being there. Last week we were talking with Drac. I cited the quad from the quad design contest for Nexus we had back on A3C forums, and I still have that sitting in my stereo system. And yeah, it didn't cost like 300 bucks. It was something very simple, but it's just a good reminder of a really fun design contest and a fun point for AC at that point in time in history. So that's the thing too. Yeah, I think it's easy to run away with that and think it has to be a huge drawn out deal, but it doesn't. It can be very minimal.
Right. I mean, those that are going to enter just for the sake of entering, just for the fun of that, they're going to enter regardless. You've got them.
Hmm.
So, at that point you got to go fishing a little bit, and you're not gonna catch any fish with nothing on the hook.
Simple enough. No, but it was I mean good to hear from. Like, the other thing Ataraxis was saying was he's hoping that, the podcast given this contest here and the fact that there is intent to do another one that was announced, that hopefully, this helps give this a benchmark, helps give these type of events exposure. And you know what we do too. Heck, this is what this is all about. We don't just want these things to exist for one point in time, but we want them to flourish and to go forward and flourish and hopefully to give them a better foundation, a better platform as time goes on for next time. Because at the end of the day, the community is going to write the narrative on this stuff. It's not just going to be in the hands of one or two people. It will. It's always going to be a group effort. So yeah, we'll see. As long as we got interest in things like this, and people want to go forward with it, I think it'll be fun, and hopefully you can pull more and more designs into it next time, various spots.
So, and then later on, a couple posts down, which, by the way, apparently TM Raven Air thinks that anyone who didn't vote for bats can fuck off. I can't say I disagree with him entirely, but I think that might be a little harsh. Um, but the couple posts down, you have Namra and or Namra. Did I get that right?
Yeah, there you go.
Nice,
What?
nice, 2 for 2. Now I'm gonna leave this one to you because this is all about the soundtracks and stuff for the game. This is your territory for the most part.
Yeah, Namra, I first have to say this was a real pleasure. Thank you for taking time to post this, regarding the AC soundtrack. Always fun to see, and it's, hey, direct response to something we were curious about. You had a link to a thread Cleric had started and kind of drew some opinions on what people prefer, the subject, and then you kind of delved into the generations of AC you were interested in, the soundtracks that you really liked, and what you kind of garnered from each and the styles that they represented. Um, for overall, I believe you said it was first gen AC and then AC3 slash AC3 SL for the heart of what you really loved at AC soundtracks. And I think mainly because you believe the essence, right, of AC is portrayed in these very well, right? I mean, you cited the classic shape memory alloys. You'll sit there, hum that, or um, the other one I think of, from MOA when we talk about the generation, Apex in a circle. You go into AC3 and SL. I mean, who can forget Artificial Sky, and so many others. Administrator, Monkey Likes Daddy has been remixed a million times. List goes, on and on with those. Um, as to the core of AC, yeah. One great thing about, I think, just this whole style of music you've had within AC is that we've had orchestral accompaniments, we've had very strange, almost mechanical choirs within things. We've had like dance music, kind of like trance style music, but it's all come together. And things started to take a bend around the Nexus point when we had rock, introduced. But before that, it was mostly all electronic. And we still get that today a lot, but rock is a much bigger part of AC. I think you can thank Frequency for that, Mr. Hoshino's band, and also just the new direction I think From has taken with that in general. Um, so as far as favorites, when you think about favorites, though, I'm right with you though, man. I mean, some of these that you hit on the head. I mean, nine. That's a no-brainer. Nine Ball is one of the cores of, if not the core of the AC series in so many ways. Um, Circulation, absolute classic. The remix was good to that as well, and the Revolution disc from Nexus. If you didn't hear that, pick up the Nexus soundtrack if you didn't, or take a listen to it. I'm sure it's out there to grab. And also Insurance Money. Thank you for mentioning Insurance Money. Holy crap. I totally agree. That's one of those just hype tracks that you listen to and you just get revved. I'd always I first heard it, from the early gen, and I said, "What is that? What is that?" And once I picked up on what it was, it quickly became one of my favorites as well. Um, so much hype behind that one. Great beat, great drums to that and everything. And it was just a electronic score. Really, really, really good stuff. Uh, I think that kind of brings us to where you left off on that. You talked about AC2 a little bit. Robo Combat, our intro theme, our main theme, thought that worked really well. It felt directly synced for the CG video that we had, and it kind of went into more, uh, AC2, I think, is really, really good to highlight here because it was one of the few, arguably, I think the only game in the AC series that really, really went off track with the like an exported soundtrack. And by exported, I mean they had it designed externally. Mishk Van Dishk uh, worked on that almost exclusively. And when you peel through the AC soundtrack, you don't see constant From Software Mark 2000. No, it's Mishk. And it was such a change, but it worked. It worked so well. This is a man that had toured. He's done events in Japan and Germany, places all over the world. the club scene and everything. But here you have it. It came and dropped an AC soundtrack, and uh, I kind of want to know why. I guess something like this hasn't been done again for AC, or why From never chose to revisit this direction. Completely letting their soundtrack being done, externally like that. Worked for two, was a lot of fun. Had a lot of fun electronic. Had some stuff just to kind of get you moving, kind of get your pulse there with your AC and stuff. But I'm not sure. I would be interested if they did that again. I doubt it. I highly doubt it, just because they have so much internal now and so much in-house development with that, especially with frequency in Kota Hoshino. But remains to be seen. Remains to be seen. But yeah, hey, you're after my own heart here, man. A lot of my faves right there. I mean, Circulation 9 and Insurance Money, those were all winners for me. I think you hit that dead on the head. I know I got some more floating around out there, but they just aren't coming to my mind right now. But I'm going to be sure to follow up with the post to that if they do. So thank you for that post. It was fun to see that and nice to see someone else so involved in the music. So
I have to agree on the AC2 part. That one definitely stands out. I don't know if I'd say that's my favorite, but it definitely left an impression more than the others, especially with the Gen 3, because the Gen 3 gets pretty muddy. I know there's some differences in there, especially with
mhm.
Last Raven, but AC2 really stood out. I really enjoyed that soundtrack. Even we've talked about this before. Even years later, it still
Yeah.
stands out as definitely having a different. I'm gonna say a little bit of a better feel to it.
Yeah, yeah, AC2, when I think back to that game, it's always kind of like the daylight of Armored Core. I throw that term around just sporadically in my mind because it was really an upbeat AC. I mean, look at what was happening. Armored Core moved to PlayStation 2. Big deal in and of itself. We had a generation jump. This had good coverage it was seen at E3. Fans knew it was coming. It had a good, nice, solid base still established with it of hardcore players coming from MOA and the games before that. And for everything that was happening, AC2 took that and ran with it, went in a positive direction. Very upbeat. Things weren't as muddy and kind of downer. You were geared, frankly, to be in this futuristic world where Mars is being terraformed, and yeah, you're doing all kinds of crazy, terrible slash heroic things as a mercenary. But it was fun. It was all a lot of fun, and I think the soundtrack contributed a ton to that. And it's interesting because you look at where things been. Here's what's funny. This is one I don't hear people talk about. The Another Age soundtrack. Yeah, the Another Age soundtrack. Because there it is. There's our expansion AC2. And while you still have that fun feel there in terms of the game and everything, you know, you things took a more internal turn for From with their in-house music. That soundtrack for Another Age was done by them. And if anything, one of the few memorable soundtracks from the AA soundtrack is the intro. You had a few other random ones out there like uh, Zerm Desert and Switchyard. I think Switchyard was one of my favorites. It played during the mission where you were destroying the storage containers. In the wreckage of that plane, there were some disorder units or experimental organisms that had got loose, and you had to
Mhm.
play cover up basically. That was a cool theme. But when I think back to AA, it's just that same recognition and familiarity that AC2 had. They seem worlds apart. It's just not there. And it's funny because AC2 Another Age didn't get a whole lot grittier than 2. I mean, you had the heat mechanic pushed a little more and things introduced, OB, especially heat behind your OB. And you definitely noticed the different heat generations from the rounds and stuff like that. But other than that, I mean, you're back on Earth. Besides that, it still exists within the same universe and everything. So I don't know. I found it interesting. I, I think it would kind of make sense to export that soundtrack again and maybe give a different DJ or someone a chance to. But hey, who knows? Who knows? Monetary concerns. Um, maybe just wanting to keep things just sized to a certain budget. Who knows? There could be all kinds of reasons behind that. But yeah, the Another Age soundtrack is not quoted. I don't think I've ever seen a fan talk about that one a whole lot. So yeah,
All right.
fun stuff. Fun stuff.
Okay, so I think it's a good time to go to break,
Yeah, yeah.
and then we will talk about this week's topics. We'll talk about weapons, Armored Core weapons, past and present. All right, we'll see you guys back on the other side.
We'll hit it. Stay tuned.
We are back, and we are here, people. The international servers are down, or the Japanese servers are down. They're both down right now because we are on right now. So there you go. Welcome
Priority.
back to the show. How crazy is that? I mean, I got into AC5 a couple months late. Um, I don't remember any major server issues in five. I don't remember any major server issues with VD up until this point.
Yeah, you know, as far as having like major downtimes, I mean, we've had like PSN maintenance and stuff like that. I think that's pretty obvious and that's pretty telegraphed. But
Right.
as far as like major crashes, I'm not really remembering back to any. If those of you rest, Vanillify people from the start, I mean, hey, post up something. If you remember major downtimes, I don't remember any on JP when I played that in Vanilla 5 either. So weird, weird hiccup.
Yeah, but server issues, I think, since Tuesday, since general maintenance, and I read a little bit about it. I can't point to anything in particular. Some people are like, oh, it's the AC servers. It's like, oh, no, 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 it's the PSN issue, and it's a login thing, and it's like, oh, somebody stuck a carrot in there, and um. I don't know. Maybe they're upgrading us from speaking spells. I don't know.
Or they need to get the hamster running again. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, it's time to get put a new hamster in there. That one died. No, but yeah, servers down and have been down off and on sporadically for days now.
Yeah.
So very interesting. That's definitely one thing. One thing that you can't take away is that the servers generally have been very good, and
Hmm.
here it is. So, but I guess that's pretty good track record, especially since we don't, at least on the PS3 side, we don't have to pay. So.
There you go. Free.
Yeah,
Totally done.
hopefully they get those going again soon, appropriately.
Yeah. Yeah. So look out for it. Stay tuned. I'll be looking for news. Yeah, I first saw it over I think the Facebook post, like the ACL thread, and then just kind of followed it from there. But yeah, stay tuned. Hopefully we get news about it. Good stuff. So yeah, again, hey people, welcome back to the second half of our show. We are talking about our title topic for this week:
Weapons,
weapons.
weapons,
Yes,
case
yes, yes.
saw,
K sauce
case saw.
everywhere. Here's a real fun one, and I really glad we're getting a chance just to kind of chill and talk about this one this week. It's a lot of fun when you take a look at weaponry from across the whole Armored Core series, because let's face it, folks, there's a ton of it. Whether you're a person that likes to deal massive burst damage with extremely powerful cannons, or you prefer your melee weaponry, or you prefer systematic tactical approaches with handguns, rifles, or whittling your opponent away, it's all here. AC has had a pretty amazing range of weaponry. A lot of it's repeated that we've had kept with us through the whole series, and
It should
some
be repeated.
should be rightfully so. There's some that aren't there right now that we don't have that I still can't figure out.
Bazookas
Zooks for one, I know, right?
for the bazookas.
Linear rounds, grenade rounds, list
Yeah.
goes on and on.
Well, there are cannons.
We have cannons,
There are
but
cannons. Grenade launcher.
yeah, Gino
How do you? It's almost not Armored Core without the grenade
almost
launcher.
isn't.
What? Where's
Yeah,
the grenade launcher?
it's that was a real sad story coming into five. I think a lot of people asked that off the bat as well. But it's
It's
rough.
hanging out with the bazookas.
Yeah, they'll play poker till I don't know AC6 or something. Hopefully we see you guys again. So,
Yes, definitely, definitely.
oh
If
man,
you want to bring back the heart of Armored Core, you can start. You don't have to start, but you can definitely start by showing a grenade launcher.
yeah, agreed, agreed. It's not just I think a weapon at this point in AC. It's pretty darn symbolic. A lot of people especially used to love the look of the dual nades as almost mimicking Raven's wings or something like that. But uh, if you can get the Gundam out of your system for a moment, I think you'll see a very iconic cannon that was.
And you should get that out of your
Yeah,
system. Be a doctor
that
about that.
was
That's serious. If you
that.
let that fester, it's going to get really
It'll
nasty
get moldy too.
and very moldy.
But yeah, here a cannon that was definitely made very popular by Nine Ball as well. A signature weapon that rained down a lot of death and destruction in op intensify mode. I think,
Hmm.
and Tierce, I know you were saying when you first ran into the original Nine Ball. with
Oh my
that, with him
gosh.
flying at you with the
Because we
nade.
had we had not seen Humans Plus yet,
Yeah,
so I mean, we saw it a little bit with some of the ACs you see going through, and he's like, "Oh, were they using back weapons, moving around?" With no, but you had that confirmed
yep.
when, or we had that confirmed, I should say, when we got into that last mission, and here comes Nine Ball flying around, infinite fucking energy, just flying everywhere, and just grenade launcher right in your face. Like, what's
Crazy.
up, bitch? Boom! And it's like, oh, what the hell was that?
Oh man.
Oh, he hit me with it again,
And again and again
and again, and again.
yeah. And
And then he had that pulse gun too. Good
pulse
lord,
gun,
that guy was OP.
pulse gun, blaze. List goes on, and and that was also a time where secondary explosion or splash damage really could still put a dent in you, a big chunk in you.
Oh yeah, we used to
So,
have a lot of fun with our tanks. Which after playing Gen One for a little while, you realize that tanks were pretty worthless. Sorry guys, it's
mm,
the truth. But we used to have a lot of fun playing around with how high we could make our ACs and in particular tanks jump up by shooting the ground with our grenade launcher and seeing how we could maneuver around like that. I mean, that was a lot of fun.
it's funny, there's actually I pointed to this too about mobility tricks with some of the old explosive weapons. There is an AI. If some of you want to see something interesting, pull out. I promise I won't get off too off topic with this. Pull out your MOA Disc 2. It should be in, I believe it's the Japanese Champion Arena. I think it's like for Project Phantasma, but I forget what rank it is. There is a OpEye white and purple AC with dual laser cannons that tends to have a penchant for using explosions to maneuver in very interesting ways. I've got this on vid. I need to post this at some point, but check it out if you can. So in
You are going to give me so many things to link this week. God,
no, you can't. You can't link that one. Don't worry. Can't do it.
you're gonna have to send this list to me because you got
Yeah,
like a Christmas list of things to link
and
this
this
time,
and this
bro.
and this and this and this. Oh man, but yeah, let's kind of center this on our thread here. We had some fun responses to some people kind of reflecting on what types of weapons they enjoy in AC and what are the different ones they've used. And our first
No,
post.
we didn't give this a hell of a lot of time.
No, we
It's
didn't.
been up for about 48 hours, so there probably would have been more posts if I would have gotten it up on Monday like I wanted to, but
Life, man.
yeah. So yeah, we got to get a little bit better about that. But yeah, we did get some really interesting posts and some variety here as well.
We kick things off with TM Raven. He mentions that one of his favorite personal weapons is the Mini Sawa. Intro-
Mini Sawa.
Mini Sawa introduced in Armored Core 3 and existed through Last Raven. He made a also quick link to Penguin Deus, who got second place at the MOC tournament, MOC 4 specifically. He linked some vids to that. Um,
Did you call him Penguin Dave?
Dave Deus.
Okay, I was gonna say it sounded like you said Penguin Dave. I'm like,
Penguin
what an
Dave.
awesome name,
Don't give me an AC name idea here.
Penguin Dave.
But man, Uh, yeah, the mini saw, real fun to see. For years and years and years, the Kurosawa had been the iconic laser rifle, and then all of a sudden we had this little purple devil that got introduced for a, lighter equip weight and less drain, and you notice that the shot count different. Obviously, a less of a caliber round didn't hit as hard, but
Hmm.
had some really cool applications to it. This one caught on really well in the Midwest too. Uh, I think it was ACMM2. I saw a number of mini saw users. That was my first time going to an event, but yeah, if people weren't using it, it was being talked about. Always a fun laser rifle to kind of go back to and default. Um, I know I was not a huge laser rifle user during the 3 gen myself, but this was one. If I had a design with it, I would equip it. Lots of fun.
Try
Lots of
Tried
fun.
and tried, but I don't think it ever got anywhere major in any of the winnings. But yeah,
Mm,
definitely a lot of use for it. I always tried to fit the mini Sawa in.
yeah.
When you got the Gen 3, the Kurosawa was balanced with everything else, and at that point, it just I couldn't justify the weight that it had with most of my builds. There was a couple of them. In fact, I won at least one event with the Kurosawa, but
Mm.
I always wanted to try the mini. Like, oh, it's all right, Kurosawa Light. This has got to be awesome. Um, I never could quite justify its use. Either it just wasn't enough damage, or it was too much weight for everything
Mhm.
else. But I always, I think the mini saw would definitely um, definitely inspired a lot of players. Definitely, was cool. You always look, it's like, oh man, it's a mini saw.
Yeah.
You gotta try. You gotta try to fit it on there. It's the mini saw, for God's sakes, and it was just cool.
Yeah, you
Just a cool alternate version of such a staple weapon.
agreed. I think TM highlights some good properties about this weapon that are really important to look at as well. If you weren't sold on, the smaller, more portable options, the equip weight, some of the more obvious answers that you saw on paper, look a little bit deeper into it. This weapon also had very, very nice shot velocity, had, good accuracy, and let's not forget, for tactical purposes, a really nice blinding purple flash upon every
Hmm.
impact of this. Number of casts ago, when we were talking about the Kurosawa, and we mentioned the AC3 Gen Kurosawa, a really fun thing about it is that thing hit you, it blinded you for a second too. And so when you started chaining your shots right, it really caused a lot of annoyance. It could cause a mind game. And this wasn't, anything short of that. You still had that blinding property, which, I mean, couldn't be overlooked. It was just a solid, well performing weapon. I think it's weapons like these that don't just excel in equip stats, but that excel in some of the more subtle stats that you don't always see off the bat, or we couldn't see in game. Then these were the things that we tended to hash out as a community and kind of work through more, figuring out velocities and where things fit. But yeah, once I think this is one that you really got a hold of, and if you dedicate yourself to it, it would shine. It really would. And this is a time when I think AC3 specifically, when laser weapons did have a chance to really do a lot. I think back to Oliver and Watcher, especially Oliver, winning events with Kurosawa alone. There was some real power in these, and yeah, here's one you could main or use as a good supplement to whatever
Sir, are
assault
you
you were doing.
segueing?
I believe I am.
You are segueing into the next post. Hustler One, he spells it out. He gives you one word, four syllables. In fact, he even tells you how not to say it specifically. Although he doesn't say that we can't call it the K-Saw.
Kisa.
Hirasawa is his weapon. I mean, we did a whole show on this. I don't think we need to go into this one too much. The staple weapon,
Yep.
it's still one of the go-tos. It's always extremely powerful, always cool looking. The Kurosawa.
Yep.
What else is there to say?
One that really doesn't lead you wrong. I mean, it's for the first time, it's got the what we're dealing with now in Five and Verdict Day. You got the whole charge behind it, but hey, you want to roll Mega Man Mega Busters? That is your weapon for doing so.
Did you just say Mega Busters?
Yep. So it
That's
reminds me. I
awesome.
always want to scream in the charge shot. That's what I always think of. I don't know.
That and Penguin Dave, you're on a roll.
Two for two. Speaking of speaking on a roll here, I was thinking of what Nomura was saying about weaponry. He was talking about the grenade rifles, and I instantly correlate jousting with those and how fun it
Hmm.
was to do OB runs with weapons like that. The talks about the arm-mounted rifles in general, especially plasma and grenade introduced in AC2. Indeed, a great time for these. I felt that. Especially the plasma rifle really shined in two more. The plasma rifle is one, we were talking about this a little bit before things kicked off. I felt the longer the three generations stretched on, I think I felt these underperformed a bit by the time we got to Last Raven.
Hmm.
I think two was its crowning point for using these, but by the end, they were if you could get beyond the equip weight and the drain and everything, just their performance to amount they pulled, debatable at best. I think there are a lot of other different options you could consider that would probably go better in your design. But
Always cool. I always tried in Gen 3. I always tried to have at least one build that was making use of the arm mounted grenade launcher. Uh,
good one to pick.
Rifle. Yeah, always just always a neat weapon. I think my favorite for this is when they made, I think it was Silent Line, when they made that a left-handed weapon.
Yeah, the left nade. Hmm,
Yeah,
hmm. Yeah,
it's definitely my favorite time. Is like that's just cool.
yeah.
That's just awesome.
That was a really good addition because I think that's when you started to see that included with like machine gun and like EO assaults and all kinds of fun things. And then by the time we hit Nexus and that thing was still hot, it went really well with the GLL. The 8 round back mounted grenade cannon. You could really do some pretty crazy chain shots with that. But when I think about these two, and especially when I kind of retreat back to AC2 with them and think about how hard they hit, there's a couple of arena opponents that crown these weapons. All right, the first was Prisoner B2. I can't say whatever the heck his name was. If you want to know the guy, boot up AC2 at some point. He was um, the op-eyed tank build, hover tank, as we'll call it, who set at, I believe he was rank 3. There was like Ares, Lionheart, and then Prisoner. And he was a grenade psycho, with the exception of his left arm, which was a wave blade. But yeah, grenade rifle, and then he ran dual GNLs on both back slots, and he just came barreling at you and just used just grenades the whole match. Regardless of what was coming from, you knew there was going to be a really hard hitter and explosion. But yeah, for sure, the grenade rifle packed a kick. It was a nice compact version and didn't have the radius of the GNL, but had plenty of stun force behind it, and you felt it when it hit you. It would cause really nasty heat spikes and everything else. But yeah, his insane jousting with that really sealed that weapon. In fact, when I first started, when I was playing two, yeah, after seeing that in the arena, I said, let me go check that out. I hadn't looked into that weapon a whole bunch. And the other AC that really stands out, feel free to correct me if I'm off on this, but I believe that's rank 21 from AC2, Samsara. He used the plasma rifle on the right arm, and that's another joust heavy AI that made a lot of use of it. And those are two, and we're talking in terms of AC2, that just really immortalize these weapons. Same effect. That thing hits you, you're like, holy crap, don't touch that, stay away from it. Hot knife through butter to your AP. Nothing you want to mess with, and always weapons that deserve to be respected. So,
No, the error he tries to get in a second post. He can't do that, but you can. Who cares? He is inspired by the previous post and brings up let's see the armor mounted plasma.
hmm
Basically just makes a comment about it. Um,
you know, Error continues this topic. TM Raven, EG. He had another mention about the plasma rifles, specifically the one from AC3, and then it was how it's still pretty solid, in SL. Um, Yeah, I think it felt by that point that they had really carved out their niche in terms of the right arm non-cannon heavy hitting energy weapons you could have. Like it was not a piddly round by any means. That thing hurt, and this is when heat you could finally feel that more as well. So I'm gonna agree. I kind of wish I saw more people use that one. It was always fun. It always felt awesome when you equipped it. I liked having it. I mean, it didn't have the same like uh, ammo count as something like the Kurosawa that you were just going to depend on, and kind of run sporadically through the whole match. But it packed a kick and rocked. A good reference. I almost forgot about that one because it's honestly not one that I used a whole lot then, but I think it's a good spot to plug that. So, real quick too, I want to pause. There was one part of Nomer's post I missed about these. He was saying that these weapons continue to appear in each successive entry up to Last Raven. Not sure if they were featured in 4 and FA. He says in LR it was the Ogre series of plasma rifles and the 81G grenade rifle. Um, and once again the grenade rifle was the one that kind of won out and was more favorable. We have tournament footage of these things, players in the competitive community making use of them. And I think that's how it won out in the end. By the time you hit the Nexus era, Ninebreaker, Last Raven, energy definitely wasn't as free as we had it back in SL, for example. First of all, well, you don't have your CGP RAs, right? So your BGR combo was a big deal. You were considering that more. I think anywhere, especially if you were an overboost not anywhere you could conserve some extra maneuverability or mobility, you wanted to have those things in place. And a solid round gave you a better chance to do that than taking a potentially risky plug out of your energy. So it varied, but yeah. And also by then you didn't have the nutty defenses coming from a left arm shield and extension solid shield, so you knew your round would at least get through to damage in some form, and you get the heat from it. Two stacks of awesome if I ever heard it.
mhm.
Fun stuff. So cool notes on those. Lots of talk about some good arm mounts. Man, I haven't thought about those in forever. Thanks, people. And
Yeah.
we have Chang that started to talk about the linear rifles and the linear cannons as they got introduced, and as they became in the Nexus and games like that. He especially references the linear back unit used by Evangel in Last Raven, and how beast it is. You know, the nice muzzle velocity, the stun behind it, the high ammo count, packs a punch. Let's not forget the braking capability of it as well. That was pretty good at knocking some kneecaps.
See, they announced or announced they first appeared linear guns first appeared in Silent Line, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, we had our, especially when we had EO, we had our linear core. Cleric always references that one. He
Yeah.
has a lot of fun with it, and yeah, we started to get those back units in, and I think a lot of people like them for the mad high ammo count. They were not grenade rounds by any means, but they really, really, really went the distance. I know we had a few people. We don't. We don't know where this guy went. He kind of fell off the face of the earth, but I know he made a big appearance at the first ACMM apparently. Sharon the Blade.
Oh yeah.
Um, Sharon the Blade was a very avid linear user on his op-eye designs at least, and I'd always see him with one of those cannons or so. So we did have community members who were really big on these. Um, I think they shined more later on as we talk about Nexus LR, especially for break potential and things like that. Um, but you put those in the Lick 10. I think it's important to separate those. That obviously the Lick 10 is the massive energy round. That was our awesome dual back unit sparking energy cannon of death, and it reminded me of the dual plasma cannon from AC2, at least the animation when you had it drawn and when it was charged and like primed to fire. But
Hmm.
this thing was on a different league. It did not shoot Flower Power of Doom. It was a very, very destructive laser. It had a distinct launch when you fired it, and it hurt. You could not sit and endure consecutive lit 10 rounds. That was not anything that was good for your health. In fact, that weapon could easily swing a match. I would lick 10. I know I had a personal run in with this. I played it was at ACMA 1 for Ninebreaker. I was playing Baker. He had an M2 E2 core design. I think he'd rushed me down pretty hard, had me on the ropes AP wise, probably had a good 3,500 lead or so. And three linear cannon shots swung the match and won it. That's all it took. So devastating weapon, especially because a lot of people, some people would lack in energy defense. But yeah, when I think of the big bad energy cannons back from AC3, I think Cheng's onto something here, especially late AC3. The LX was dangerous. Each incarnation it came out when that thing was back, it never, I think, deteriorated in that regard.
I always tried to get into the handheld linear guns.
Yeah.
They just didn't quite function the way I thought they should.
Hmm. Hmm.
For what they were, I thought the delay was just way too much, and I think this ended up getting fixed eventually. But just while I was around in Gen 3 and while I was playing regularly, I just I wanted to like them
Hmm.
so badly, and just couldn't make them effective.
I'll tell you one that got hyped. That got hyped to no end, and I'm not sure how many players actually executed on using these long term. Now, it was the AST linear rifle from Ninebreaker. If for those of you who don't remember, it was a linear rifle that was introduced, and it had a kind of light gray color scheme to it, real steely, kind of compact looking. But it was a linear rifle that shot multiple rounds in succession, and you'd have a break, in between those. You couldn't spam it, but it would shoot. It would get 3 rounds off, and you could. The fun part about it is you could kind of balance the shots. When you pulled the trigger, it wasn't one, two, three automatically. You could choose when these were going to go. You could layer them all together. You could spread them out a bit to try to give your reload buffer a little bit more room. It was interesting. I thought it was just a fun weapon because it kind of made you think about the firing patterns, like how fast I want to lay these rounds down. Do I want to put anything between them? I enjoyed it, but it's funny. I don't. I never see a whole lot of talk about the AST linear. So, but yeah.
But overall, I thought that overall, I think the linear guns, especially the linear cannons in 5 and VD, I think they're pretty cool. You and I have talked about them a little bit. I'm not quite ready. I know some people don't like them. Cheng here obviously does, but and I'm with Cheng on that. I think they're pretty neat. I'm looking forward to getting some more time into mastering how to use them.
Hmm. Hmm. Um, I think it's also important to mention with these, sometimes they can be good with the supplementary assault. Cheng also mentioned in this post that he's developed a bit of a soft spot for the Habas high-speed missile, and how speedy and accurate that is. Uh, Again, though, because of the way most of the KE defense is set, it can kind of run into a bit of a lockout damage-wise. So you'll probably be in the ineffective zone, but it still has he's mentioning he enjoys the good loop and curvature it has when you throw it. It's a nice, solid, good impactful round to have. So that was always something neat to consider about these. And I think that harkens back to some of the others. I always viewed the linear guns as blending well with the total weapon loadout slash complement. I never felt like running in a match with just linear gun in my right arm alone. It's like, all right, that's good. Let's solo this. Let's rock. I mean, no, I I felt they blended much better when you had your missiles, your extensions working together. You had a left arm unit working in tandem with them. They made for a pretty. They could be a pretty vicious assault depending on what you had going. But for me, at least, with the exception of the Lick 10, being able that could stand on its own 2 feet easily, 10 rounds of death. Besides that exception, I felt most of them needed some supplementary support. But yeah, hey, so check this out. We've had some awesome fan postings here. We've kind of hit on, I think, some of the weapons that we really enjoy. But let's point those real quick. Tierson, if you could point to a weapon or so that you just loved throughout the AC series, if there's any one of those, which one would it be?
Decoys.
Deeks. Can we get?
No, no, no. I'm
I was
joking. I'm
gonna say,
joking.
I
Although there
know.
are some classic wins in tournaments with people using decoys because they did a little bit of damage when you ran into them. Yeah, I think there's a couple of them.
Mhm.
Up until Gen 3, I never really had a specific one. I mean, especially because, if you were playing seriously, unfortunately, up until Gen 3 with Gen 1 and 2, it was about the Kurosawa.
Mhm.
I mean, they were pretty overpowered during their days in Gen 1 and 2. So I mean, my friends and I, we would lead to that conclusion. All right, we're gonna have to arm this fucking Kurosawa on our ACs, otherwise we're just not gonna be able to compete with each other.
Right.
So going into Gen 3, and I think especially with Silent Line, I believe is when they put in, and this is when I found one of my favorite passions with playing the dual rifle.
Mm.
Um, Dual rifles, the rifles in particular, were always I always liked the rifle. I always liked the concept. I always thought it was a pretty solid way out, but unfortunately, it just never by itself did enough damage. And in 3, you started to get left-handed guns, and then when they gave me the option to put a rifle in each hand, um, this worked overall. This worked really well for me. It just worked well with my play style. I placed very well in a lot of tournaments using this. I know you and I had a couple classic matches where I chased your ass around with the rifles for
Nine breaker. Yep.
days and days. It's like there I am, just right on your ass with shooting rifles at you. I mean, that was just. And it helped me to develop the more aggressive style that I have that gets me slaughtered nowadays. Um, but yeah, that was always a favorite of mine. Overall, besides that, in general, I am a big fan of missiles.
Mhm.
Give me your various flavors and types. I enjoy the fact that we actually have TE missiles now with current gen. Um, Missiles, they've had worse days, but they've had better days than what we're seeing
Yeah.
in Gen 5 right now.
Definitely so, definitely so. I think that was one good highlight on Sunday. Totally jumping back to exhibition, someone I believe it was a tank build was running the TE missiles. Fun to see. I was like, oh, cool, because I got a distinct launch pattern and everything. But yeah, I'm right with you there. It's not their worst day. It's not their best day. Um, but they're at a kind of weird medium or intersection. But there's definitely a point where these things are super dangerous. We could point back to some of the hottest missile packs from AC history all day. I know if I talk about these, one that immediately jumps to mind are the freaking multi missiles from AC2. Like, holy
Yep.
good lord, man, those things were just terrors. And I'm sure we could do a whole show on missile packs. Mark that hashtag topic, potential
Yeah.
topic. But yeah, man, they were always there. They're always great. They were good supplementary weapons and stuff. But when I think back to favorites and things that I truly loved, it comes down to two for me. It's the GNL and the orbits. And I say the orbits in all their forms and incarnations. I love the idea of like autonomous weapons in AC. I think
Hmm.
that's a lot of fun. We have sentries in 5. I immediately tried those because I said, "Oh, autonomous weapon, auto fire, sweet," and the fact that they have infinite ammo in and of themselves, which is great. I mean, um, they didn't have the same impact for me that orbits did. I genuinely enjoyed orbit weapons for their harassment potential. There were some players who just didn't focus, and then they got very bothered by orbit specifically. But even
Hmm.
even when you were fighting against a very trained mind who didn't pay much attention to them, they were. It was nice to have them to at least keep your opponent moving in a direction. They were good to harass, assault, even to corral to a degree. If you really wanted to place your maneuverability within that, and I felt they gave you a really good, almost like control over things that are happening in the battlefield. And plus, they had other sweet,
Definitely.
yeah, they had a sweet, chaining ability, man. I mean, they fit with, extension missiles and things like that. There were all kinds of cool combos. And then you had the inside orbit just for one game. We had those in another age. Loved those things to death. Didn't have the
I think that's
same.
where Orb started, wasn't it?
I believe, yeah. That's the first time we had them. The AC2 gen's another thing I think AC2 Generation 4. But
They started out as an inside part, and I think they ended up being a back weapon.
they ended up developing and going from there with we had other units. Another odd one from AC3 series, the Yasia. It was a dual back unit that let out autonomous weapons.
Yeah, I seem to remember there were some orbs in
Yeah.
one of the versions for Gen 3 that was overpowered. Am I
Mhm.
remembering that right?
I don't know if in OV terms, in fact, you saw this back unit in the intro to AC3, the heavyweight Mirage AC, the red AC made use of that. He was just about to break those out when our headless AC decided to pull his epic maneuver and let loose all those missiles. Yeah, that was the unit. So if you're looking for this back unit, yeah, check out the AC3 intro. Again, it's the heavyweight red Mirage AC. Near the end, he's about to deploy these weapons, but doesn't get much of a chance to. I think he
Yeah,
does. I think he does early on though. But
yeah, you were definitely sending me your notes.
yeah. Okay.
Linking more stuff here for me here. All right, no, but yeah, those are always fun. Um,
Yeah.
but you had mentioned GNL, and I know we talked about it a little bit.
Yeah.
Him and I, because we're old farts in the community, and we really do enjoy. Well, we're definitely current gen. We really do enjoy the previous gens.
Hmm.
We've on more than one occasion just talked about how fun the grenade launcher has been in the past.
Yeah, we went over this one, a bit earlier in the show too. But here's just a real old dog in the AC series. Hung with us all the way through. For answer. Very iconic weapon, iconic for many reasons. But it always had its signature, devastating explosions behind it. Definitely had a peak during the AC3 era, specifically AC3 and SL. Very high caliber, not only a tournament weapon, but also just a great cannon to equip. This is one that did not kill your equip drain. You might have to make some room if you were looking at a certain platform to use it on weight wise, but let's face it, if you wanted to use this thing, it had a fit. It not a problem fitting this thing. Uh, so much fun to have on tanks, especially your jousting tanks. Great to have on quads. Op-eye designs, that's what's a no-brainer, especially the combination of GNL and LQ15. Fun all day long. It had so many applications, so many
You need to put
fits.
that in your sig. Fun all day
Fun
long.
all day long.
Um,
you know,
one of my favorites in the past, and I still mess around with it now in Gen 5. If I ever, well, not if I had only one, but definitely one of my favorite weapons when it came to Op Intensify Humans Plus was the Gatling gun.
oh man, how could we forget op-eye like CNG 300? Oh my goodness. It
Pretty
was
powerful.
it had its time where it was very very dangerous. In fact, you're right. That was one that was juggled. Those were some of the top ones. In fact, chain gun and LQ and nade. There's an important one to remember. Obviously they got beaten into the ground once Nexus hit, but
Yeah, they did. In
uh,
fact, I remember loading up my AC3 and Silent Line builds for the 5-part series we did recently. I'm like, wow, why do I just have a grenade launcher on this AC? And then I went out and I was testing. I'm like, oh, that's why I just had a grenade, or why I just had a Gatling gun on this AC.
yeah,
That's crazy. Gatling guns are definitely not what they used to be.
yeah. The sound of when the chain gun would crank in. If you could hold a steady beat on someone, you could spike heat extremely fast, deal very very good damage at a very high rate. Just a really really cool weapon. Could be used in joust, could be used in just circle training on a target. Yeah, just had great applications. It was kind of shame. I was hoping they'd go into Nexus and Beyond, at least fairly solid, but guess that just couldn't happen. I'll tell you what did survive a little bit of a nerf bat, the GNL, if you even want to call it a nerf bat. I think it's a point where From wanted to keep it iconic. They lowered the round count on it a bit. They increased the reload. during like Nexus and Last Raven and whatnot. But it was still dangerous. The sheer velocity of the thing and the contact area that it had that running for it. In fact, it was even faster than in some of the past games. So it still had that massive damage potential. You know what? From was nice enough to give it its own animation. It had that massive shell that kicked out of the back of it when you fired it. Just put the extra impact behind shooting it, and just so much fun. Sealed the deal for me with using the thing, but man, oh man. But yeah, those are my two. I'm not sure, again, if we'll see orbits specifically appear again. I
That would be fun. At least just to send one out. I know they
It
used to
would.
come in like threes and sixes and stuff, but you just send one out. Come on,
Yeah.
come on,
Yeah. I mean,
come on.
hey, we got hints of it in Verdict Day. Those of you who I think you call the boss the spinny thing. That's what Cheng called it, at least.
No, that's not what I called it.
No, okay.
Not that you won't find me giving things stupid names, but no, I did not call that the spinny thing.
Late in your missions, you probably remember a boss type enemy that deployed a ton of autonomous units, very very similar to Orbis, except they weren't sitting just harrying you with lasers. They tracked you very fast, follow you around the field, and there were a ton of them too. They swarmed you. This wasn't just three, five, or six. So that kind of made me smile. I'm like, that seems like a bit of a retro throwback, and I'm hoping you guys are going to put these in again at some point. Who knows? Who knows though?
Yes. Come on, take the game back where it belongs. Take it back where you made a lot of money with it.
There you go. There you go. Right, but
Yeah, I can't say it. I can't say it in any simpler language for them to understand unless I just said that sentence in Japanese. Take the game back to where you made money with it. In fact, next week I will come back with how to say that in Japanese.
well, I don't put it past the Super Archangel Pulverizer, so
That's right.
leave it at that. So, hey, you know what? Again, we got some good responses for the time this was up. If you guys have anything else to post, please by all means post in this thread. Drop us a line through our relevant channels, I believe. In fact, I will go ahead and paste over those grounds. Remember, you can drop us a line at ravensvoiceacl@gmail.com. You can, as I mentioned just a moment ago, post in the relevant thread. Also, if you want to catch not just this cast, but previous ones, we're going to have an archive up at some point. We're still getting things where we want them. Take a visit to us on our site. That's theravensvoice.com. And don't forget to check our Facebook and our Twitter pages for any updates as well.
Yes, and just like From Software, we are desperate for you to like us. So, come to our Facebook page and give us a like, or tell From Software what you want in the game, and they'll put it in because apparently it's all that you need to do now.
That's a thing. Anyway, thank you everyone for tuning in. Stay tuned. We will catch you next week. Same time, same place. Till then, have a safe weekend. Take care.
See you later.